Hello, hello, hello. Tamara Hamilton here, blog about the business of beauty. I'm so excited to be here. It is a little bit of a chillier day, so we're not in one of my favorite offices, which is outside at the beach in the backyard somewhere outside. We are in the studio, which, hey, I am blessed and grateful to have. And in my last video on leadership, I mentioned personal development. And I was like, well, some people probably really don't even know what that means. They really don't even know how to go about personal development. So I thought I would come on today and share about 5 of my top books for personal development that have had a huge impact on me. Still, battling this upper respiratory. So while we give people a chance to come on, I'm going to go ahead and make my, hot girl summer drink. A really hot girl all the time drink, but definitely for summer. Go ahead and get this collagen in here. And I am out of apple teeny, so we are using unflavored. And we will get some coconut colada in here as well. Okay, so personal development. If you've heard of it, let me know in the comments. Is it something that you do daily? Is it something that you grow up watching your parents in the home do? Tell me your definition of personal development and its role in your life. I would love to hear that. If you are watching on Facebook, please know that there are multiple ways you can support this. If you are really picking up what I'm throwing down, you can always send stars. That is, kind of like if I were, drumming on some drums on Michigan Avenue in Chicago and you want to throw a little something in the hat. It's kind of like how it is on Facebook. You just send stars. They're actually pretty inexpensive. And it actually helps keep this channel alive. It helps keep, oh my God, it's so pretty. Look at that. It helps to, keep fresh, new, interesting content, hauls, and all of that. Not like I'm getting rich and driving Lambos off of stars. So just gotta say that. So we're gonna talk personal development. Come on in, say hello. And we will get going here in a second. Oh, it's so pretty. It looks like a blue popsicle. What was your favorite popsicle as a kid? I loved blue. Loved blue. But my absolute favorite is a banana popsicle. Like, I can't eat just one banana popsicle. And my local grocery store in my neighborhood here doesn't carry them anymore. So I don't know if I'm going to have to find them online or drive across town to get them. But I love, like when I was pregnant with my youngest daughter, who will be 300 months in a few weeks, I love saying that to poke fun of people who will celebrate their baby's birthday every month until they're like 10. Like, come on now. Can we stop using months? Can we, I understand that you love your child and you're grateful and all that and blessed, but geez, I gotta do calculations to figure out how old the child is in adult terms because you're on this month's kick. So anywho, let's talk personal development. Okay. Hey girl, hey. How are you? I am like loving my skin and I'm loving my skin, but that's not what we're here to talk about. Okay. So personal development is exactly what it sounds. It's you working on yourself. Okay. So check this out. You can get all the degrees, you can have all the work experience, but you can still have, for example, a low emotional IQ, right? Your EIQ. How do you handle stress? Thank you. How do you handle stress? How do you handle, conflict? How do you handle grief? How do you handle all kinds of things in life, right? How do you react emotionally? What is your emotional intelligence quotient, right? So that could be a general area for you to work on is your emotional intelligence. And how you might work on that first is you might go get a therapist. You might get a counselor, okay? So personal development is not skill development. Skill development is me taking funnel courses, learning how to build funnels. Skill development is me learning, copywriting because I'm in marketing. I've been in marketing for 30 years. That is skill development. Personal development, some people, refer to it as shadow work. That's the stuff you do when nobody else is watching, right? So, a kind of related example is years ago when I was working out like big time. Like I had such a nice body. And I was working with multiple personal trainers going to this cardio combat class. And I would watch cardio combat for weeks before I ever joined a class, okay? Because I'm not the most coordinated person in the world. And they were doing these moves, like I thought suicides were the worst thing you could do in working out at that point. Some people think wall sits. I can slay a wall sit. Wall sits are not a problem for me because my gluteus maximus is pretty maximus and my quads are too. So wall sits are actually very comfortable for me. They relieve a lot of pressure on my back. But two things that were like just not good for me: suicides because I'm not a runner, and two, burpees. Like, and they were not only doing burpees, they were doing some insane burpees, right? So I did not want to be embarrassed in the class. So what I did, the shadow work that I did, is I would go to the gym during times when I knew a lot of people wouldn't be there. And there was this studio room with all the cycles for the cycling classes, and they would have all the cycles backed off into a corner, and I would work out in there sometimes with my personal trainer, Julie. And so that's how I knew about this room. And it also had a stereo system. And so I could plug my iPod at the time into the stereo, and I could just practice burpees by myself without anyone else looking. Okay. And so while that is more like motor skill, physical skill, some sort of sports skill related, it is the best analogy that I can give you of what personal development is. Okay. It is you knowing where you are maybe weak, where you want some improvement on yourself, and you not having to declare it to the world, not seeking validation from the world, you being honest with yourself, taking that introspective look and saying, okay, how can I get better at this? How can I become a better human? How can I become a better steward of the human race, right? That's literally what personal development is, okay? So there's a lot of different ways that you can do that. You can definitely go to any Barnes and Noble on Amazon, and you can put in personal development, self-improvement, and all kinds of books are going to come up. There are all kinds of blogs. There are all kinds of YouTube videos, okay? There are all kinds of podcasts and seminars that you can go to really begin to hone in on yourself and, really look at some things. Usually, and the reason why a lot of people call it shadow work is because it's something that you may have been dealing with and not even realize how much it impacts you. That was a traumatic experience from childhood, right? A lot of us are just really walking around manifesting. I think there was soap in here. It's really soapy. That concerns me. I think there was soap in there. It doesn't taste like it, but I've never seen it be foamy like that. I don't know. We'll see if the foam goes away completely. So personal development, right? Everyone can use it, okay? Why is personal development important? Personal development is important because I read this book years ago called What Got You Here Won't Get You There, right? Because I was feeling a little plateaued in my career because I'd seen people come in and every 2 years they boom, 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 and it wasn't happening for me, and I actually outperformed a lot of those people. So first place I always look is myself. Like, what am I doing wrong? What can I be doing better? Social operant conditioning there, hey? So, and the book was titled What Got You Here Won't Get You There, right? It's just like when I was working out. And I've been a workout fiend more than once in my life. I used to be really into Billy Blanks and Tae Bo. And, I remember when I hit a point with Tae Bo where I just didn't feel like I was getting the muscle tone, and the workouts weren't as challenging, and I wasn't losing the weight, and I just wasn't seeing the results that I wanted to see. So I went back to basics, right? And really focusing on technique and form and improving that. And then I would get the results that I wanted again. That's an example of what got you here won't get you there. It got me back to the same point. And, you know, I'd have to really fine tune my diet. I'd have to fine tune, you know, how many times I was working out. I would have to fine tune other things, my water intake, to get over the plateau. And so that's the same thing with you in life. If you are feeling stagnant, if you are feeling that you're not quite where you want to be, if you're not as happy as you want to be, if you're not as joyful, at peace as you want to be, that's an area of self-improvement. If you have conflict all the time with certain people, especially family members, because I always say they know what buttons to push because they installed them, then that's an area for you to really take a look at. And one of my favorite forms of personal development is journaling, right? It's something I was fortunate to be exposed to and learn how to do. Not that there's really much to learn, but it was part of my curriculum in middle school that we would journal, right? You'd have to be careful what you put in there because somebody else was reading it. And that got a couple people in trouble, you know, sharing things that they thought. Like one girl said she hated a teacher, I think, and wished she could kill him or something like that, or unalive him, I should say. And that pretty much got her kicked out of school. So, you know, you gotta, personally, I think, especially in my adult life, my personal journal is mine. It is not for anyone else to read. And you have to know the people in your life too. Like I was in a relationship once where he read a journal and I felt so violated, and it really should have been a red flag in that relationship and early on that I should have gotten out of. Okay. So if someone, you should be able to be free to write in your journal freely and completely and wholeheartedly, but without fear of judgment. Now, with that said, just keep in mind, if you are ever under a criminal investigation, what's in there could be used against you. Just, I don't know why, because I watch a lot of crime TV like most women do. So just know that. But I don't have those types of thoughts or things, but I just felt the need to say that. So journaling it's helped me get through really dark times in my life. Journaling really helps me get clarity. Journaling really helps me know what to focus on. Again, I guess, that's clarity. And I read something or saw something the other day that talked about, you know, just journaling once or twice a day for a good 5-10 minutes and doing a brain dump really helps you get clarity and helps you be more productive. Okay. So personal development, highly recommend it, highly recommend it. My own story with personal development is I was very fortunate in that I had grandparents who were into personal development, and my mother was big time into personal development. What does that mean? What does that look like? My grandparents were avid readers. They always had personal development books. I remember them. They were so cute. They went through this program at church and graduated from this program and everything. Okay. So I grew up in the personal development world. Like my grandma knew who Les Brown was when he married Gladys Knight, not because he married Gladys Knight, but because she'd been reading his books and going to his seminars for years. Where my grandparents got exposed to personal development, I don't know. And unfortunately, they're not around for me to ask them, but I grew up watching them in personal development. My mother was also into personal development, and she even went back. She was a high school dropout because she had me. She went back to technical college when I was in middle school and graduated. And now my mother has a master's degree. You know, but beyond formal education, she always was an avid reader and always taught us, you know, to read. I grew up in a family that reading was fundamental. You need to know how to read and you need to know how to comprehend. So personal development was always something that I'd been witness to. And I've always been a reader, and I've always loved reading. Now, I didn't get into personal development per se until probably my first job out of college. You know, because I used to read a lot, but it was more fiction books. I didn't really open up my first personal development book until actually we read The Greatest Salesman in the World, which is on my list, in undergrad. Okay, and I loved that book, devoured it. It's a small, tiny read, and it was the actual paperback back then. So I guess I was, I won't say I was introduced to it, but I kind of dabbled in it academically in undergrad. And then my first job out of college, because of all the gaslighting, because of all the toxicness of the environment, I really got into personal development because I always have thought, is it me, Jesus? What can I do? When it really was the environment was just toxic, and I wouldn't recommend it to anyone. And so that's when I got into books. And I also interned. When I interned in I guess that's really, again, it goes back to undergrad. At SC Johnson, they have this library, and I would love to go to that library before or after work, or even on a break, and check books out and read books, not only related to marketing, but books that I would hear the executives talking about, and I would get them. And I always remembered hearing about the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, which is number 1 on my list. It is the first book that really, actually the first book I would say would be The Greatest Salesman in the World by OG Mandino. And it just talked about, I'm trying to recall, it had such a profound effect on me that, I lost the original, or probably had to sell that book, because I was poor as dirt in undergrad. And so I probably had to sell it. And as soon as I got money, I went and bought it again so that I had one. And it was just this great book. And it was really like a personal development journey, and talking about, selling isn't just buy my product, buy my product, buy my product. It was really about principled selling and serving. And I just really loved that book, and I listened to it or read it once every few years. It was just a great book, a very easy read. It's in a parable type form, like all of Og Mandino's books are that I know of. And that probably was the first. And then the second, I would say, is 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. And that one was, it was my second job out of college. And I don't know how I got my hands on. I got my hands on the CD or cassette tape, and I played it while I was cleaning, and just like had to stop and started taking notes because it was good. And I took vigorous notes on them. I eventually threw that notebook away, but I had it for years, until you couldn't even read the ink on the paper anymore with the notes that I had on there. Principles I learned from that were self-care, renew the saw. He talked about even God rested on the 7th day, and you need to rest. Rest is a form of productivity, right? The other great thing I learned from that book was the whole concept of seek first to understand and then be understood. Like, that has served me very, 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 very well throughout my career and in life and in business. Seek first to understand, then be understood. As we were talking about on the leadership video, that you can go back and you can find throughout all of my social media, right? The other thing that I really took away from that, and from a relationship standpoint, and it's really set the bar for me with relationships, is the difference between independence and interdependence, and how a lot of us strive for independence, especially, me turning 18, having a baby and moving out at 18, really wanting to assert in, coming from a home with a very controlling, disciplinary mom. And it's been a theme, still continues in my life, of me asserting my freedom. I don't like to be, pigeonholed. I don't like to be characterized. I don't like for anyone to mother me. It's all about me asserting my independence and learning that the next step above that is actually interdependence, right? Like, that's where the real maturity lies, is the interdependence, being in a relationship where you can rely on each other. And, it really planted the seed for what does that take. So 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Stephen Covey has long since passed away. I still highly, highly recommend that book. There were other books of his that I know, like my bonus mom read, but that one is the one for me. 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Okay. The third one is, and all of these are on my Amazon influencer store, which will be in the caption, also in the description or caption of this video, wherever you're watching it. Okay. So the third one is How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. Okay. Be hearty with your approbation and lavish with your praise. The number one thing I took from that book, but it's about being sincere, right? Like I said on the leadership video, it's not just love bombing people. In fact, don't love bomb people, but be lavish in your approbation and hearty in your praise, because people will kill for it. People are thirsty for it. People will die for recognition. That's why we see a lot of these crazy things we see on social media, right? You know, I always give the analogy of my kid's Sunday school song, The Jesus in Me Loves the Jesus in You. And he talks about that in the book. If you want to be friendly, you first show yourself friendly. That is a great read. I'm not going to go through all of it, but highly, highly recommend, and you will be able to find it. You can go to my Amazon influencer store, which is on the link in my bio or the description or caption of this video. Okay. So How to Win Friends and Influence People with Dale Carnegie. Because, you know, you don't know this, but I know it because I was about to say, remember, well, I grew up in a household with a mother who said, if you can count your friends on one hand, you're lucky. She didn't believe in friends. She didn't believe in having, you know, a lot of friends. Like, there are like 2 to 3 people I know in my entire life that she's called or considered her friend. Right. And so we weren't really encouraged to have friends, though we did, right? But just learning how to make friends of people that you might not otherwise be friends with is what I would say this book teaches you, right? It's like the precursor to networking, right? Okay, I think we're back. Someone called. Oh, I hate that. I really, really hate that, right? Okay, so the next, number 4, is actually 2 books, okay? And I'm going to give you the updated version, okay? But back in like 99, 98, aging myself, when I first read these books, changed everything, okay? And it's 2 books, and they are, they were commissioned by, I think, like the Gallup Corporation. I can't even remember the original author's name. One of them, I don't know if she's still married to him, but his wife had a show on like the Style Network and all of that. And it just really, really still impacts how I do business today. Okay. And that is, first discover your strength, first break all the rules. And then the follow-up to that is now discover your strengths. Okay. So let's go over the first one. First, break all the rules. Break all the rules. I don't even remember what the rules are that they were talking about breaking, but the whole premise of the book were these 6 to 12 things that you needed to do in order to hire quality staff and get the most out of them and retain them. Because the whole premise was that if you lost people, it was very expensive to lose people in the first year, like at least the first year's salary. Okay. And so it was, the whole purpose of the book was to look at how to not lose people and lose them so quickly, how to be able to hold on to people in the workplace a lot longer. And honestly, at the time, companies were really starting to look at you as a manager and how good you were or not at your job, depending on if you had high turnover or not. Now, keep in mind, turnover can be great, especially if people are being developed and recruited recruited, developed, and promoted, right? So not all turnover is bad, right? But at the time, I worked in a department that was starting to have really high turnover because of the lack of leadership. Okay, so the foam is gone. There's no, okay, we're good. We're good. Okay, so this book was great because it talked about those things. And this is where a lot of my management style and influence came from, okay? So I could do a whole nother video on this, but it talks about base camp. These 3 to 5 questions that if they're all yes, things are looking good for you being able to keep this person on your team, right? Things like, do I know what I'm expected to do? Do I have the tools and resources to do what I'm expected to do? Is there someone at work that really cares about me? Okay. Those are the things that are involved in base camp. Okay. And I got that from this book. And so it is literally what allowed me to make sure that, I had a really good onboarding process, both in corporate America and as well as in what I do now, because I understand the value of onboarding because I understand base camp, right? And it's not just about, it doesn't mean you got to be all in your employee's business or your team's business or that they got to be all in yours. But people need to know that they are cared about. They need to know what's expected of them. They need to know that they need to have the tools and resources. And I'm going to give you an example of why when I read this, I was like, yes, because when I started my first job out of college, and mind you, I was spoiled in the workplace, because I had interned at Johnson and had all of the tools and resources I needed to do my job. And my first job out of college, I didn't even have a cubicle for months. For that first summer, I didn't even have my own computer. I almost quit. So that's how I knew that was important, because had I been asked that first summer of what was in 1996, I almost quit that job. I was ready to quit. I was literally just showing up for a paycheck because I was not being challenged. My skills weren't being used, and I didn't have the tools and resources, and I definitely didn't feel like anybody there cared about me. So that bad experience, so that's what I'm saying about personal development, can come from seeing things that are done wrong. I remember having this conversation with my oldest daughter about, at the time she was young, she was saying something about certain members in the family and how they're this or that. And I'm like, well, sometimes people are the example of what not to do. And this was an example of what not to do. And this book, in knowing those, 10, 12 questions, and I can do a whole other video on that, really shaped the way that I build teams. Okay. Oh, that brought me to another really good book. That's not on the list, but I'm probably going to add. Okay. And the second one is Now Discover Your Strengths. Okay. And back then when you bought the book, hidden in the book somewhere was a code for you to be able to go online. Yes, you could go online and you could take this quiz and it would give you your strengths. And the whole premise was, don't focus on your weaknesses, focus on your strengths and develop your strengths. Now, I think that applies, in the workplace. I think that applies to skill sets. And I think, that, oh my God, the same first job out of college, we basically went through this test before I even made the connection that the two were the same. And someone in HR would ask you all these questions and they wouldn't tell you your results. Like, talk about gaslighting. Because they thought you would be more concerned about your weaknesses or what you weren't strong at. Like, no, I understand. I'm only supposed to focus on what I'm good at. So tell me that, and give people more responsibility, more projects, more to do where they shine. And because then they're going to be happier at work, right? And so that really shaped me as a manager and as a leader in knowing to look for where someone really shines, because that's where they're most likely going to find joy. And I learned that in this book. And I was able to look at my own life, my own work history, and see that was absolutely 100% true. Where you are really good at something, it's you enjoy it because it brings you joy. Where you find the joy in what you do is because that's where you're really good at it. Because remember, we are told so many negative messages like 2,000 times or something by the time we're 2 or something like that. It's insane, right? And that's in another book. Okay. So those 2 books, and the up-to-date version, last I knew, was StrengthsFinder 2.0. But just look for the StrengthsFinder series, and you will, I'm telling you, even read the originals. They're really, really good, okay? And then number 5 is Gopro by Eric Worre. And that one is definitely more, business related. But I will say that it really changed everything for me. And here's why. Because I grew up being, and I'm not saying this is anyone else's fault, it just is probably the way that I'm wired, being someone who, when I give my all, right? And people, in my opinion, that give their all are people who probably get taken advantage of a lot, like, that whole, are you a empath type thing. But I think also we get really attached, not necessarily always to people, but we get attached to outcomes. We get attached to things in a way that, sorry, having a little difficulty breathing, that very congested all of a sudden, that we take things more personally, right? Take rejection personally, take, things personally, right? And so one of the things in sales and in business is you can't take rejection personally. You can't take when they say no personally. You can't take when they don't see or get the vision personally. And this book talks about not being attached to the outcome, detaching yourself from the outcome. And I think it's in chapter 4. And it also gave me the whole thing on firing your boss or your upline, thanking them for presenting you with the opportunity. But if I'm going to be successful, it's up to me, and I'm taking ownership of my business. And that was literally business changing for me. I remember the day and the moment when I read those words and heard them, because I also had the CD and would listen to it because I was working full-time at a job I hated at the time. And it literally changed the game for me. My business growth in that year was just, and for years, just was like off the charts, just insane from that book. There was another book I had just recently thought of while I was talking and I lost it. I was talking about the StrengthsFinder. Oh, okay. Ken Blanchard. Anything by Ken Blanchard, the 1 Minute Manager, will change your life, will rock your world. But you got to get the 1 Minute Manager, and you also got to get the companion on applying the 1 Minute Manager. I can't remember exactly what it's called, but and he also has some great books on building teams. Anything by Ken Blanchard. Get his entire library. You cannot go wrong with Ken Blanchard. Okay? So those are the top 7 books that have, impacted my personal development and gave me a really solid foundation. As a bonus, I will say, and I didn't bring it down here, but I have this leadership Bible that I don't know that you can find anywhere else anymore. I bought it in like 2002, 2003 at Barnes & Noble, and I've Googled it, Amazoned it, and the book just doesn't seem to be in print anymore. But it's an actual Bible, Old Testament and New Testament, but it's a study Bible. I don't know if you're familiar with those, but it really shows you basically how to lead like Jesus, right? And there are other books out there like Jesus CEO is another good one. There's another one on servant leadership, but this is an actual Bible and it gives you actual texts, and it breaks it down into segments like communication. I can't even remember all of them right now, but I would put that on the list, but it's just not available anymore. But it is a bonus, and I pull that book out regularly and refer to it because I really always want to be principle centered. It's not about I'm not saying this from a religious standpoint. I'm saying this from a principle centered standpoint, from a spirituality standpoint of, really being a better human, being a better steward in that. So those are my top 7-8 books on personal development. You can find them on my Amazon influencer store. They are on the link in my bio. You can also, if you're on Facebook or YouTube, in the caption or description of this video, you will find that information. You can always comment below with questions and I will gladly answer them. You can always message me as well. Thanks for watching this video. If you found value at all and you are new to my channel, please make sure to subscribe or follow and hit the notification bell so you know that when I go live and when I post videos, if you're on Instagram or YouTube, for example, and I think you can do the same over on TikTok. So each Wednesday, my mentors and friends host an online webinar that teaches you online marketing, attraction marketing, social media marketing. I do have my own courses in that, but lately it's just easier to refer people to this program that I am an affiliate of. I get a lot of training from there because I'm always about continual improvement, because what got you here won't get you there. You got to always be flexing and moving, and you can go check that out. That link is also, the weekly webinar link is also on my tap link page. Okay. So thanks for watching. Any questions below, and I will talk to you later. Bye.